Okay, we're going to start with a basic introduction to the Northern method. And right from the beginning, we come on the mat and we start doing our puja. And puja is really simple, but it's more about the affirmations and acknowledgments in your head than physically what you're doing. But you can see I've positioned my body so that I'm sitting right next to my client. I've got my hip right up against her hip, and I've got my hand relaxed and on her belly. The belly is the center of the body's universe, so that's why we prefer to start the puja from the belly. Now the first thing I want to do is an acknowledgement, and my puja is to acknowledge the space, which is the four corners of the mat here. And the idea that everything inside the mat is sacred space and everything outside is the world. And I want to leave all my stuff, all my baggage, all my junk outside of this mat, because once I come on here, this is like my church. It's a sacred space. Now, the mat is the first sacred space that I acknowledge, and my client's body is the second sacred space that I acknowledge. Just because we're here on the mat does not mean that I have any right to do anything to my client. I have to always be respectful and in an attitude of gratitude that it is an honor to be able to lay hands on another person, no matter if they ask for it or not, okay? So I have this as an affirmation in my head. All right, then as I come here, I want to ask myself a question. Is there anything that keeps me from being able to be with my client in a good way right now? It's this real simple question. Do we have any issues that we need to resolve either between myself and my client or inside of myself or with my environment or anything like that before I actually start working on my client? If the answer is yes, there's something that keeps me from being able to be open and a clear channel of unconditional love and healing work for my client, then I need to actually take care of that before I start working on my client. Now, if the answer is no, and we're good to go, there's nothing that she needs before we start, like what if maybe the client should go to the bathroom first? Sometimes it's really nice to ask, do you need to pee or to go to the bathroom before we start, because we'll get started and be moving into this blissful space and oops, got to go to the bathroom. So that's something that could come up. Let's handle that ahead of time, okay? It's also a good idea to have a little bit of water sometimes before you start. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to ask for a blessing or make a really positive affirmation for my client. These are just the basic steps of puja. There's actually a lot more that we could do, but these are the basic steps. And what I mean by that is I want to wish my client well. In other words, the reason why we do Thai yoga and Thai massage is to communicate in a practical way using real physical pressure, our love, our compassion, our joy, and our mental well-being to the body and mind and spirit of another person. And so it's really about this internal process of affirmation, and all of the touching that I might do anywhere on the body is an expression of my love and is an expression of my puja. In Thai, we call that promiwihan si, the four boundless or unlimited states of mind of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. All right, so I want to wish my client well, and so traditionally we have a mantra which is called Om Namo. And we might, as a traditional setting, we might actually do the mantra, Om Namo Shivago Silasa Ahan Kaluniko Sapasatanan O Sata Tipamantang Surya Jantango Malapato Pakase Si Wantami. That's a very traditional and ancient way of working, is to actually do a mantra for healing for the client. But actually, it's not necessary to do a complicated, long, or even foreign language mantra as a form of affirmation, although it might be fun to practice one. But all you really need to do is go, may this person be happy. May this person, may my client, may Amy be well. May she be free from suffering. May she have freedom and uncomplicated life inside of her body. May she be surrounded by wellness inside and outside of her. And I make this statement, a positive, affirmative statement in my head, and it's very specific, and I always make it a statement that is in the present. So, may she be happy now. May she be well now. And I want you to understand this. We always affirm the energetic principles before we go to the physical. So this is a Thai concept, which is energy precedes physiology. So we always do the affirmation, and then the touching is actually meant to be an extension of that affirmation. And so the last step in puja is I place my hand here, is to sit up nice and straight, take a breath, and just drop my energy down into the center of my body. And as that breath releases, I just take a few moments to listen to my client. To listen to my client. In other words, all great communications begin with a listening process. So my work with my client is not me doing something to them. It's not me showing them something necessarily that I'm going to do to them, and they're not passive in that respect. That actually what I'm doing is I'm having a conversation about healing and wellness, and this puja is how we open the door. It's how we knock and ask permission for all of the energetic and spiritual factors to come together that will allow us to have a healing outcome for the few minutes that we have together. And one of the ways that we have this energetic conversation with the client is that we start and we end that process with listening. And so I'm going to take a few minutes, or just it could be just for a few seconds, or you could take 5 minutes if you wanted to. And I want to just sit calmly and quietly and just be with my client. I want to feel their warmth. I want to feel their breath. I want to feel a little bit of this rhythm of pressure between us, so that as I begin to explore this Thai yoga asana-based vinyasa, or flow of techniques in succession, that as I move and go to the warm-up next, that I will be in tune with the natural rhythms, the natural energetic rhythms, the natural pranic rhythms, or the natural rhythms of the breath, and I will be in tune with the natural sort of ebb and flow of the physiology and rhythms of my client's body. And so, necessary to listen to get into that space. And then also, as we all know, when someone actually listens to us, they are less separate from us. In other words, we want to have a loving communication. And in my opinion, the basis of loving communication, a loving interaction, is communication. And so the basis of good communication is practicing your listening skills. When we go on to be expert practitioners, then maybe we'll take the listening and we'll fine-tune it. We'll actually explore what are called Vedic assessments. And we'll get into taking the pulse and literally looking at the balance of the chakra energy and looking at the wind gates and all of these things. And we'll have tools and methods to actually assess these things, which are all forms of listening. But simply to start, it's about getting into a quiet space with your client and then allowing for that process, coupled in the umbrella of a positive affirmation, in the acknowledgement of a sacred space, in order for that process to begin.